There is a kind of power that does not announce itself. It does not need to raise its voice. It does not need to prove its worth. It does not chase attention, approval, or recognition. It simply watches. While others rush to speak, it listens. While others reveal their intentions, it studies the intentions of those around them. While others react emotionally, it remains still. And that is where a dangerous truth begins to reveal itself. Asterisk, the person who controls himself is often the person who becomes hardest to control. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, heard, praised, and understood, silence has become a rare weapon. People reveal too much. They explain too much. They react too quickly. They tell everyone what they want, what they fear, and what they plan to do next. And then they wonder why others know exactly how to manipulate them. But silent power operates differently. It does not seek permission. It does not announce its next move. It creates uncertainty in the minds of others while creating certainty within itself. Today, we are going to uncover asterisk asterisk 7 rules of silent power asterisk asterisk, principles that can transform the way you speak, react, observe, negotiate, and move through the world. These rules are not about becoming cold or cruel. They are about becoming disciplined, because when you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you begin to understand yourself. When you stop reacting to every provocation, you begin controlling your emotions, and when you stop revealing every intention, you give yourself something incredibly valuable: strategic freedom. Remember this: not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every plan deserves an announcement. And not everyone deserves access to your mind. The strongest move you can sometimes make is to remain silent and let other people reveal themselves. So listen carefully, because by the end of this speech, you may realize that the greatest power you have been searching for was never in controlling other people. It was in mastering yourself. Power does not always announce itself. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one saying the least. In a world where people constantly compete to be heard, strategic silence gives you an advantage because it allows you to observe what others overlook. When you speak less, you create space to listen, analyze, and understand what is really happening beneath the surface. Most people reveal themselves through their words. They reveal what they want, what they fear, what they believe, and sometimes what they intend to do. But if you are constantly talking, you are too busy presenting yourself to notice what everyone else is revealing. Silence is not weakness. Weakness is reacting without thinking. Weakness is feeling the need to defend yourself against every criticism, explain every decision, and respond to every provocation. Strategic silence is different. It is a deliberate choice to pause before you act. It gives you control over the moment instead of allowing the moment to control you. Think about how often people speak simply because they are uncomfortable with silence. Someone asks a difficult question, and they immediately start explaining. Someone challenges them, and they rush to defend themselves. Someone insults them, and they respond emotionally. In those moments, they are giving away information without realizing it. Their frustration becomes visible, their insecurity becomes visible, their priorities become visible, their need for approval becomes visible. The disciplined person learns to sit with silence. When confronted, they do not immediately react. They take a breath. They observe the other person's tone, body language, choice of words, and emotional state. They ask themselves what the person actually wants. Is this person looking for information? Are they trying to provoke a reaction? Are they testing a boundary? Are they attempting to make you reveal something? That brief pause can completely change the outcome. Strategic silence also creates uncertainty. When people cannot immediately read your emotions or predict your next move, they have less information to use against you. You do not need to become mysterious for the sake of appearing powerful. You simply need to stop giving unnecessary explanations. You do not have to announce every goal, every plan, every struggle, or every decision to the world. There is also power in allowing other people to speak first. In conversations, negotiations, and conflicts, the person who is desperate to fill the silence often reveals more than intended. If you remain calm, you may learn what the other person values, what they are afraid of, and where they are willing to compromise. Sometimes the information you gain from listening is far more valuable than anything you could say, but strategic silence requires discipline. It does not mean ignoring important conversations or refusing to communicate. Silence should never become an excuse for cowardice, manipulation, or emotional avoidance. The purpose is not to disappear from every difficult situation. The purpose is to choose your words instead of allowing your emotions to choose them for you. Before speaking, ask yourself whether your words create value, protect your position, or move the situation forward. If they do not, silence may be the better choice. You do not need to prove that you are intelligent by answering every question. You do not need to prove that you are strong by responding to every insult. You do not need to prove that you are successful by constantly announcing what you are accomplishing. There is a certain confidence in knowing that you can remain silent without feeling invisible. You can walk into a room without demanding attention. You can listen without feeling inferior. You can allow someone to misunderstand you without immediately correcting them. You can keep working while others are talking about what they are going to do. The more comfortable you become with silence, the more carefully you begin to use speech. Your words become fewer, but they carry greater weight. People begin to notice that you do not react impulsively. They realize that when you finally speak, you have already considered what you are going to say, and this is where silent power begins to develop, not through intimidation, not through constant confrontation, but through the ability to remain composed while everyone else is revealing themselves, reacting emotionally, and giving away information they may later wish they had kept to themselves. The moment someone learns how to control their emotional reactions, they begin to take control of their own power. Most people believe strength means being able to dominate others, speak louder, or win every argument. But real strength often appears in the moments when you have every reason to react and still choose not to. Anyone can become angry. Anyone can respond to an insult. Anyone can send the message they will later regret. The difficult thing is creating a space between what happens to you and what you decide to do about it. Your emotions are powerful signals, but they should not automatically become your instructions. Anger can tell you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear can tell you that something deserves attention. Disappointment can reveal that your expectations were different from reality. But none of these emotions should be allowed to take control of your decisions. When emotion becomes the driver, other people can influence you simply by pressing the right button. Think about how easy it is to provoke someone who needs to defend their ego. A single insult can change their entire mood. A careless comment can make them spend hours thinking about revenge. A delayed response can create anxiety. Someone else's success can create jealousy. A criticism can destroy their confidence. When your emotional state depends on what other people say and do, you have unknowingly handed them control over you. This is why emotional discipline becomes a form of silent power. You begin to recognize the difference between feeling something and acting on it. You can feel anger without becoming aggressive. You can feel fear without running away. You can feel disappointment without becoming bitter. You can feel excitement without making reckless decisions. The emotion can exist without controlling the behavior. One of the simplest ways to develop this discipline is to create a pause. When something triggers you, do not immediately answer. Do not immediately send the message. Do not immediately make the decision. Give yourself time to understand what is happening inside you. Ask yourself why this situation is affecting you so strongly. Is your pride being challenged? Are you afraid of losing control? Are you seeking approval? Are you reacting to the present moment, or are you reacting to something that happened in the past? That pause can protect you from decisions made under emotional pressure. Many people destroy relationships, opportunities, reputations, and years of progress because they could not tolerate a few uncomfortable minutes. They allowed temporary emotions to create permanent consequences. The disciplined person understands that emotions rise and fall. What feels unbearable in one moment may feel completely different after an hour, a day, or a week. You also need to stop confusing emotional control with emotional suppression. Pretending that you feel nothing does not make you powerful. It simply pushes the emotion deeper until it eventually finds another way to appear. Real control means acknowledging what you feel without allowing the feeling to dictate your behavior. You can admit that something hurt you while still choosing a measured response. You can recognize anger while deciding that anger will not determine your next move. The most powerful response is sometimes no response at all. Someone wants to provoke you, but you remain calm. Someone expects you to become defensive, but you simply listen. Someone tries to pull you into an unnecessary argument, but you refuse to participate. They may believe you have nothing to say, when in reality you have decided that their behavior does not deserve control over your state of mind. This changes the way people interact with you. When others discover that they cannot easily manipulate your emotions, they lose one of their simplest methods of influencing you. They cannot predict your reaction because you are no longer reacting automatically. You become harder to provoke, harder to pressure, and harder to distract. But this discipline must begin internally. Do not wait until someone attacks you before practicing emotional control. Practice it in ordinary situations. When something goes wrong, slow down. When someone disagrees with you, listen. When you receive criticism, separate useful information from personal emotion. When someone ignores you, resist the temptation to create stories in your mind. Train yourself to observe before judging, think before speaking, and decide before reacting. Every time you refuse to surrender your behavior to a temporary emotion, you strengthen your self-command. Every time you remain calm when chaos surrounds you, you become more difficult to manipulate. Every time you choose a deliberate response instead of an impulsive reaction, you prove to yourself that your emotions may influence you, but they do not have to control you. And eventually, people begin to notice something different about you. They realize that pressure does not easily break your composure. Insults do not automatically trigger you. Provocation does not determine your behavior. Your silence comes more meaningful because it comes from control rather than fear, and your words become more powerful because they are chosen rather than released in the heat of the moment. The moment you stop seeking approval from everyone around you, you begin to reclaim a part of your power that you may have unknowingly surrendered. Human beings naturally want to be accepted. We want people to understand us, respect us, praise our decisions, and recognize our efforts. But when the desire for approval becomes stronger than your own judgment, you stop living according to your principles and begin living according to other people's expectations. This is one of the quietest forms of weakness because it can look like kindness, humility, or cooperation from the outside. You may say yes when you want to say no. You may change your opinion because someone disagrees with you. You may hide your ambitions because you fear being judged. You may explain your choices repeatedly because you cannot tolerate someone misunderstanding you. Slowly, without noticing it, you begin allowing other people's reactions to determine your behavior. Silent power begins when you realize that approval is not the same thing as respect. If you constantly need people to approve of you, they gain influence over your decisions. Compliments can control you because you start chasing them. Criticism can control you because you start avoiding it. Your behavior becomes a performance designed to maintain a certain image. The person who wants to remain powerful must become comfortable with being misunderstood. Not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will support your goals. Not everyone will agree with your methods. Some people will judge you simply because your decisions make them uncomfortable. If you change yourself every time someone disapproves, you will eventually become a version of yourself created by everyone except you. This does not mean ignoring all criticism. There is a difference between refusing approval and refusing wisdom. A disciplined person listens carefully to useful criticism, but does not automatically obey it. You can consider another person's opinion without surrendering your judgment. You can respect someone's perspective without allowing their perspective to become your identity. Ask yourself how often you make decisions because they are right for you and how often you make them because you want others to think positively about you. That question can reveal more than you expect. Sometimes people choose careers, relationships, lifestyles, and goals not because they genuinely want them, but because those choices earn admiration. They build an image that looks impressive from the outside while feeling empty from within. The need for approval also makes people predictable. If someone knows exactly what you want others to think about you, they can use that desire against you. They can flatter you when they want something. They can criticize you when they want to pressure you. They can threaten your reputation to make you behave differently. The person who does not desperately need to be liked becomes much harder to manipulate. There is freedom in allowing people to form their own opinions. Someone may call you arrogant when you are simply confident. Someone may call you distant when you are protecting your peace. Someone may call you selfish because you finally established boundaries. Someone may misunderstand your silence because they are accustomed to people who explain themselves constantly. You do not have to correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes explaining yourself only gives the misunderstanding more power. If your actions are consistent with your principles, time will reveal more than arguments ever could. This is where self-respect becomes more important than public approval. When you know what you stand for, you do not need constant confirmation from the outside world. You can walk away from situations that violate your values. You can say no without writing an essay to justify it. You can pursue a difficult goal without announcing it to everyone. You can continue working even when nobody is applauding. The strongest people are often willing to be temporarily unpopular. They understand that meaningful growth sometimes requires choices that others will not understand. They are willing to disappoint people when necessary. They are willing to change direction when their own judgment tells them to. They do not confuse being liked with being respected, and they do not sacrifice their identity simply to maintain an image. Stop asking yourself, will they approve of this? And begin asking, does this align with the person I am becoming? That single shift changes the source of your decisions. Instead of looking outward for permission, you begin looking inward for clarity. When you no longer need everyone to understand you, you become calmer. When you no longer need everyone to like you, you become freer. When you no longer need constant praise, you become harder to manipulate. And when your confidence comes from your own standards rather than other people's reactions, you develop a quiet strength that does not need to announce itself. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to reveal less while observing more. Most people enter conversations focused on what they are going to say next. They want to impress, defend themselves, prove their intelligence, or make sure others understand their position. But while they are busy presenting themselves, they are missing valuable information about the people standing in front of them. Every person you meet is constantly communicating, even when they are not speaking directly. Their tone changes when certain subjects appear. Their energy shifts around particular people. Their confidence disappears when they are challenged. Their attention increases when money, status, recognition, or influence enters the conversation. These small changes can tell you more than their carefully chosen words. The person who observes carefully does not rush to conclusions. Instead, they collect information. They notice patterns. They listen for contradictions between what someone says and what someone repeatedly does. Words can be carefully prepared, but behavior often reveals what a person actually values. This is why speaking less can give you an unexpected advantage. When you reveal every thought, every goal, every fear, and every plan, you give people a map of your internal world. They learn what motivates you. They discover what makes you insecure. They understand what you are trying to achieve and what you are afraid of losing. Once someone has that information, they may use it intentionally or unintentionally. You do not need to become secretive or suspicious of everyone. The goal is simply to become selective. Not every person deserves immediate access to your private thoughts. Trust should be earned through consistency, not granted simply because someone appears friendly. You can be polite without being completely open. You can be warm without revealing everything. You can build relationships while still maintaining boundaries around the parts of your life that require protection. Observe how people behave when they have nothing to gain from you. Observe how they treat people who cannot help them. Observe how they react when someone else succeeds. Observe what happens when they are told no. Observe whether they take responsibility for their mistakes or immediately search for someone to blame. These moments often reveal character more clearly than charming conversations ever could. Silence creates opportunities for observation because it allows the other person to continue speaking. Many people become uncomfortable when there is a pause, so they fill it with additional information. They explain themselves further. They reveal motivations they did not intend to reveal. They tell you what they truly want because they are trying to convince you. You do not need to interrupt that process. Listen carefully. Let people talk. Ask simple questions when necessary. Give them room to reveal their priorities through their own words. The more comfortable you become with silence, the more information you can collect without forcing anything. This principle is especially valuable when dealing with conflict. When someone approaches you aggressively, your first instinct may be to defend yourself. But before reacting, ask what they are actually trying to accomplish. Are they seeking a solution, attention, control, or an emotional reaction? If you immediately become defensive, you may give them exactly what they wanted. If you remain calm, you can understand the situation before choosing your response. There is also a difference between observation and judgment. Observing means noticing what happened without immediately attaching an emotional story to it. Someone becomes distant. Instead of assuming they hate you, observe the pattern. Someone changes their behavior around powerful people. Notice it. Someone constantly demands attention but rarely listens. Recognize it. Over time, patterns become more informative than isolated incidents. The more you observe, the less you need to guess. You begin making decisions based on evidence rather than appearances. You stop being easily impressed by words because you pay attention to consistency. You stop being easily manipulated by emotional displays because you watch what happens after the emotion disappears. And the most important part is this. While you are observing others, you are also learning to observe yourself. You begin noticing what triggers you, what attracts you, what makes you defensive, and what causes you to reveal too much. You become aware of your own patterns, and that awareness becomes another layer of power. You do not need to know everything about everyone. You simply need to become harder to deceive and more difficult to manipulate. Speak with intention. Listen without rushing. Watch behavior. Protect information that matters. Let time expose what words attempt to hide, and let your patience become the space in which other people reveal far more than they realize. There is a powerful difference between talking about what you are going to do and actually doing it. Most people announce their intentions long before they have earned the results. They tell everyone about the business they will build, the body they will create, the skills they will master, the money they will make, or the person they will become. The announcement gives them a temporary feeling of accomplishment, but it can also create a dangerous illusion that progress has already begun. When you move in silence, you remove the need to perform your ambition for other people. You stop looking for applause before the work is finished. You stop depending on compliments to maintain your motivation. Instead, you allow your attention to remain focused on the process. Your plans become private until they are strong enough to survive without external validation. There is a psychological advantage to keeping certain goals to yourself. When you tell everyone what you are going to accomplish, you may receive praise before doing the difficult work. That praise can satisfy part of the desire that originally pushed you toward the goal. Suddenly, the mind receives a small reward for an achievement that has not yet happened. The urgency begins to disappear. You feel productive because people believe you will succeed, even though nothing has been proven yet. Silence protects you from this trap. It forces you to measure progress through action rather than reaction. Nobody needs to know how many hours you worked. Nobody needs to know how many times you failed. Nobody needs to know how many times you started again. You simply continue. There will always be people who question your ambitions. Some will tell you that your idea is unrealistic. Others will laugh because they cannot imagine themselves doing what you are attempting. Some may even discourage you because your growth threatens the version of you they are comfortable with. If you announce every step, you give these voices constant opportunities to interfere with your confidence. But when you work quietly, their opinions have less access to your mind. You can experiment without an audience. You can fail without public embarrassment. You can change your strategy without explaining why. You can learn from mistakes without having to defend your original plan. This does not mean you should reject advice or isolate yourself. Wise people understand that certain goals require mentors, partners, teachers, or trusted allies. The principle is not to hide everything from everyone. It is to become selective about who receives access to your plans and at what stage. Your unfinished ideas do not need a public audience. There is also strength in allowing people to underestimate you. When others assume you are doing nothing, you gain freedom to work without pressure. You do not have to prove that you are progressing every week. You do not have to constantly demonstrate your intelligence or potential. You can remain quiet while developing skills, building relationships, studying opportunities, and preparing for the moment when your work can speak for itself. Results have a different kind of authority. Words can create expectations, but results create evidence. Anyone can say they are disciplined. Few people can demonstrate discipline consistently. Anyone can claim they are successful. Results make the claim unnecessary. Anyone can describe the person they intend to become. Their behavior eventually reveals who they really are. This is why you should become more interested in evidence than announcements. Do not ask yourself whether people are impressed with your plans. Ask whether your actions are producing measurable progress. Do not measure your growth by how many people know about your goals. Measure it by how much closer you are to achieving them. Quiet work also builds internal confidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself without needing anyone to know, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. You learn that motivation does not always need an audience. You learn that discipline can continue even when nobody is watching. You discover that private victories can be more meaningful than public applause. Eventually, the difference becomes visible. The person who constantly talks about what they will do remains surrounded by explanations. The person who works quietly eventually has evidence. Their skills improve, their opportunities change, their behavior changes. Their circumstances begin to reflect the effort they invested when nobody was paying attention. And when the results finally appear, you do not need to explain every struggle that produced them. You do not need to convince anyone that you worked hard. You do not need to argue with those who doubted you. The outcome becomes the message. The transformation becomes the evidence. The achievement becomes the answer. So protect your plans, protect your focus, protect the early stages of your growth from unnecessary opinions. Let other people talk about what they are going to do while you concentrate on what must actually be done. Build quietly, improve quietly, and let the final result make the announcement for you. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess, yet most people give it away without realizing what they are doing. They allow random opinions, unnecessary arguments, social media, gossip, distractions, and other people's problems to occupy their minds. They wake up with a clear sense of purpose, and within hours their attention has been pulled in 10 different directions. By the end of the day, they feel exhausted without understanding where their energy actually went. Silent power begins with learning that not everything deserves a response. Every person will not deserve your explanation. Every disagreement will not deserve your participation. Every insult will not deserve your anger. Every opportunity will not deserve your time. Every problem around you is not automatically your responsibility. The ability to decide what deserves your attention is one of the clearest signs of self-command. People often become distracted because they believe they must react immediately. Someone sends an angry message and they feel compelled to answer. Someone posts an opinion they dislike and they enter an argument. Someone criticizes them and they spend the entire day thinking about it. Someone else achieves something impressive and suddenly they question their own progress. Their attention is constantly being pulled outward. The disciplined person creates a boundary between what happens around them and what enters their mind. They understand that attention creates emotional investment. Whatever you repeatedly focus on begins to influence your thoughts, your mood, and eventually your behavior. If you spend your entire day focusing on conflict, you begin carrying conflict inside yourself. If you constantly consume negativity, your perception becomes darker. If you repeatedly compare yourself to others, your own progress begins to look smaller than it actually is. This is why protecting your attention is not selfish. It is strategic. You cannot build something meaningful while constantly allowing distractions to interrupt your concentration. You cannot develop emotional stability if you spend every hour responding to emotional chaos. You cannot think clearly when your mind is crowded with information that has no connection to your goals. Start becoming selective about what you consume. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Not every piece of information deserves your belief. Not every notification deserves your immediate attention. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to leave something unanswered. There will always be people who try to pull you into unnecessary conflicts. They may provoke you because they enjoy seeing you react. They may criticize you because they want your attention. They may create drama because they are uncomfortable with peace. If you respond every time, you allow them to determine where your energy goes. Instead, ask yourself a simple question: does responding to this improve my situation? If the answer is no, silence may be more valuable than any argument. You do not have to win every conversation. You do not have to convince every person. You do not have to correct every false opinion about you. Your time is too valuable to spend proving yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe. Protecting your energy also means learning to recognize exhausting relationships. Some people constantly demand attention but give nothing constructive in return. They bring the same problems repeatedly without wanting solutions. They create emotional turbulence and expect you to become their permanent source of stability. Compassion is valuable, but endless emotional availability can drain the very strength you need to manage your own life. Boundaries are therefore a form of silent power. You can care about someone without allowing them unlimited access to you. You can forgive someone without inviting them back into every part of your life. You can respect someone without agreeing with them. You can walk away from an argument without considering yourself defeated. Your attention should be directed toward things that build your future, your health, your skills, your relationships, your work, your knowledge, your discipline, and your goals deserve more attention than temporary drama. Every hour spent on meaningless conflict is an hour removed from something that could improve your life. The more carefully you protect your attention, the more powerful your focus becomes. You begin noticing that peace is not something you find by controlling the entire world. Peace comes from deciding what you will allow into your internal world. Other people may continue talking. Problems may continue appearing. Criticism may continue arriving. Distractions may continue competing for your attention. But you no longer have to answer every invitation to chaos. You can observe without participating. You can listen without absorbing. You can disagree without fighting. You can walk away without explaining. And you can return your attention to the work, the discipline, and the purpose that actually deserve your energy.